Imagine waking up in a freezing, just totally crumbling apartment.
Oh, yeah. Bone chilling.
Right, and the smell of boiled cabbage is just hanging heavy in the air. You drag yourself out of bed to do these forced exercises in front of a metal plaque on the wall.
The telescreen.
Exactly, the telescreen. And it blares military music at you. But it's not just broadcasting, it's actually watching you back.
Which is terrifying.
It really is. A shrill voice from the screen literally singles you out, yelling at you to bend lower, to try harder, and you comply, masking your exhaustion because you know that even a flicker of the wrong expression on your face, like a twitch of anxiety or a look of doubt, could get you dragged from your bed in the middle of the night.
Erased from existence entirely.
Completely erased. Welcome to this deep dive into the source material. Today, our mission is to break down a massive stack of sources centering around George Orwell's definitive dystopian masterpiece, 1984.
And we also have some really fascinating biographical notes about his actual life.
Right, which we'll get into. We are going to extract the core mechanics of how reality is controlled through memory, language, and human connection. And, more importantly, we're going to explore why these concepts are absolutely crucial for you to understand in our modern era of, well, massive information overload.
It's so relevant right now.
It is. But before we jump in, we do have a mandatory disclaimer. These sources contain politically charged content referencing left-wing and right-wing totalitarian concepts like Stalinism and fascism. We are not taking any sides or endorsing any of the political viewpoints contained in these sources. Our goal is simply to impartially convey and unpack the ideas exactly as they are presented in the original material.
Yeah, it is essential to approach this as a mechanical teardown. We aren't just looking at the narrative, We are looking at the blueprint of absolute power. And to really understand that blueprint, we have to immerse ourselves in the psychological reality of Winston Smith's daily life in Airstrip 1. The physical coldness of that world is one thing, but that psychological claustrophobia is the true mechanism of control. It is a terrifying, inescapable baseline.
Most of us are familiar with the aesthetics of Winston's world, I think. The rotting 19th century houses, the bombed-out sites.
The sheer dinginess of Victory Mansions.
Yes, where the lift never works.
Right.
And of course, the ever-present posters of Big Brother. But what really anchors this society aren't just the telescreens. It's the three massive, contradictory slogans of the party.
War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength.
Just totally mind-bending stuff.
Those slogans are the perfect entry point into the psychology of this regime, really. They aren't just propaganda, they are cognitive conditioning.
How so?
Well, they force the citizen to internalize massive contradictions as absolute truths, which breaks down the mind's ability to rely on its own logic.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because Winston's day job at the Ministry of Truth is literally the physical manifestation of that cognitive breakdown.
Oh, the memory hole.
Yeah, we all remember the famous scene where Winston receives a slip of paper about a disgraced party member, Comrade Withers, and Withers has been vaporized.
He's an unperson now.
Right. So Winston doesn't just redact a file, he drops the true documents into a memory hole to be incinerated. And then he literally invents a replacement out of thin air.
Comrade Ogilvy.
Yes, Comrade Ogilvy, this perfect dead war hero. Winston creates a man who never existed in the present, but now exists permanently in the past. It's wild.
What's fascinating here is the sheer mental gymnastics required to survive doing that job every single day. The text calls this concept doublethink.
Doublethink.
And it is so much more insidious than simply lying. I mean, lying is an outward deception, right? You still secretly know the truth. Doublethink is the conscious act of inducing unconsciousness.
Right, it's like, okay, imagine if your social media feed didn't just update you on the present, but literally retroactively deleted and rewrote your past posts to perfectly match today's trending algorithm.
Oh, that's a terrifying thought.
Right. You post a picture with a friend, they fall out of favor, and suddenly that picture is replaced by a photo of you with a completely fabricated person. And you aren't just forced to pretend it's always been that way, you are required to actually believe it.
That is the crucial distinction right there. You have to know you are faking reality to perform the physical act of altering the document. But simultaneously, you must believe with absolute certainty that the new reality is the objective truth.
It hurts my brain just thinking about it.
It's supposed to. You use logic against logic. By doing this, the party effectively destroys the very concept of objective reality. Because think about it. where does the past actually exist?
In books.
It exists in written records and in human memory. So if the party alters the physical records and doublethink overwrites the human memory, then the party literally controls the past.
But altering paper records is, it's a leaky system. You constantly have to chase down old documents, and human memory is stubborn.
Very stubborn.
So if you really want to seal the exits and make that control permanent, you have to get inside the citizen's head and dismantle their ability to even formulate a rebellious thought.
Which brings us to the most permanent weapon in the party's arsenal.
The annihilation of language.
Exactly. The Newspeak Dictionary.
We dive into that sweltering, noisy underground canteen where Winston sits with Syme.
The philologist.
Yeah, the dictionary guy. And Syme is practically glowing with passion. But his passion is for destroying words. He's just cutting language down to the bone.
Syme's enthusiasm is chilling because he understands the true objective. The aim of Newspeak isn't efficiency, it's cognitive amputation.
Wow. Cognitive amputation.
Yeah, he introduces the concept of duckspeak. Basically, training citizens to make speech an unconscious act of the larynx rather than a conscious act of the brain. You just quack out orthodox party lines.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. And I want to push back on this a bit because it's the core of the whole terrifying thought experiment.
Go for it.
Does this actually work in practice?
Yeah.
Like if you remove the word for freedom or rebellion, do people just feel the anger anyway, like a boiling pot without a whistle? Or does losing the word literally amputate the human ability to feel the concept entirely?
That is the ultimate question. And to understand the text's answer, we have to look at the mechanics of human cognition.
Okay.
The party operates on the principle that language is the scaffolding of thought. If you remove the scaffolding, the structure cannot be built. As Syme tells Winston, orthodoxy means not thinking.
Not thinking at all.
Right. If you don't have the linguistic tools to differentiate between oppression and justice, you literally cannot intellectually rebel.
So the boiling pot just never boils.
Well, it boils, but it never turns into steam. You might feel a vague physical dissatisfaction, a sour stomach, or an aching in your bones.
Which is exactly how Winston experiences his life.
Exactly. He has a varicose ulcer that constantly itches. He wakes up coughing. His body is protesting the dinginess, the bad food, the synthetic gin.
Ugh, that gin sounds awful.
It's basically engine degreaser. But without the vocabulary to diagnose why his environment is unjust, he cannot mobilize that physical suffering into a coherent political thought. The grievance remains entirely trapped in the physical body.
That makes perfect sense. So with the future of language shrinking, the only remaining anchor to truth is that physical memory. And Winston obsessively struggles with his.
He really does.
He is haunted by the fact that he once held physical proof of the party's lies. That photograph of the three disgraced party leaders.
Jones, Aronson, and Rutherford.
Right, the photo of them in New York on the exact day the party claimed they were committing treason in Siberia.
He held it for 30 seconds before terror forced him to drop it into a memory hole.
30 seconds.
Yeah, that photograph was a fragment of the abolished past. It's like a fossil bone that destroys an entire geological theory.
But because he destroyed it, he is completely alone with the knowledge. He wonders if he is just a lunatic, a minority of one. So to find an anchor, he turns to the masses, the proles.
The 85%.
Right. The party's official narrative is that they liberated the proles from wicked capitalists in top hats. And we all remember Winston's desperate attempt to get historical truth out of the old prole in the dingy pub.
Oh, that scene is so painful.
It is. He essentially begs the man to tell him if life was better before the revolution.
And the tragedy of that scene is the utter fragmentation of the old man's memory.
He remembers pints of mild beer called Wallop.
Right, and he remembers the top hats.
He remembers being shoved by a drunk guy on boat race night. But he has absolutely no grasp of the historical big picture. None.
Because without a narrative framework, history degrades into isolated sensory details. A million useless facts, but the overarching reality is completely outside his vision.
Wow.
Yet Winston still writes in his diary, "If there is hope, it lies in the proles."
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, trying to put yourself in Winston's shoes? You have a memory of a different world, but every book, screen, and person tells you it never existed.
It's gaslighting on a societal scale.
Exactly. And the only people who might remember the proles are entirely neutralized by their own apathy, too focused on the weekly lottery to care about objective truth. How do you hold on to your sanity in that environment?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, It explains Winston's core realization in his diary. I understand how W. I do not understand WHY.
The mechanics versus the motive.
Right. He knows the mechanics of how the party alters records, but the ultimate motive for this massive psychological torture evades him.
Yeah.
The grand tragedy of this society is the mismatch of awareness. The proles have the relative freedom to rebel. I mean, they aren't monitored by telescreens in their homes, but they lack the consciousness.
Right, the vocabulary.
Exactly. Meanwhile, party members like Winston have the consciousness to see the lies, but are entirely stripped of the freedom to act.
They are totally paralyzed. And the party doesn't just isolate citizens from history to maintain that paralysis. It actively isolates them from each other. Basic human connection becomes the ultimate threat.
It is a deliberate destruction of private loyalty. The state cannot tolerate any emotional bond that competes with loyalty to Big Brother.
Which explains Winston's grim memory of his strange wife, Catherine. He nicknamed her the human soundtrack.
Because her mind was just a tape recorder of party slogans.
Yes. She viewed intimacy merely as a disgusting minor operation, a chore she literally referred to as our duty to the party. Just chilling.
The party has systematically tried to kill the sex instinct, or at least distort it into something dirty and shameful. But human nature is resilient, which leads us to the sudden radical shift in the narrative.
The girl with the dark hair. Julia. Winston thought she was a spy for the thought police, actually.
He wanted to smash her head with a cobblestone.
He did. But then she slips him that folded square of paper in the hallway that just says, I love you.
And it completely shatters his paradigm of isolation.
It really does.
It forces him out of his own head and into a shared reality with another human being.
They coordinate that incredibly dangerous meetup in the woods, the place Winston calls the Golden Country. And there's that moment where a thrush lands on a branch and just starts pouring music into the void.
Such a beautiful scene.
It is. It's not singing for a mate or to claim territory. It's singing purely for the joy of it. Then Julia rips off the scarlet sash of the Junior Anti-Sex League she wears as camouflage.
That action is a profound rejection of the state's claim over the physical body.
And they take it even further by renting that dingy room above Mr. Charrington's junk shop. It's a pocket of the past without a telescreen. Winston brings the glass coral paperweight.
A beautiful, entirely useless relic.
Exactly. Julia brings real sugar, real white bread, and real coffee that fills the room with a rich scent from childhood. She puts on makeup to feel like a real woman instead of a drone in blue overalls.
She reclaims her humanity.
Yes. It's like being in a pitch-black room your entire life, and suddenly someone lights a match. The match is tiny, it won't heat the room, and you know it will burn your fingers eventually, but the light is so intoxicating you absolutely cannot put it out.
That match analogy is perfect because Julia understands the mechanics of that darkness much better than Winston does.
She really does, doesn't she?
Oh, yeah. She grasps the inner psychological meaning of the party's sexual puritanism. Why does the party care so much about controlling intimacy? Because when you make love, you use up energy, and afterward you feel happy and you don't care about anything else.
Right.
The totalitarian state cannot survive a populace that is content and privately fulfilled.
Sex gone sour, as Julie calls it.
Yes, exactly. The regime deliberately enforces sexual privation to induce a state of rolling hysteria in the populace.
Yeah.
All that bottled up frustration, that unspent human energy, it has to go somewhere.
Kate Week.
Exactly. The party captures it and channels it outward into war fever, public executions, and hysterical leader worship.
So Winston and Julia making love isn't just a romance.
Not at all. As the text explicitly states, it is a political act. It is a deliberate strike against the party's monopoly on human energy. By claiming their own bodies, their own pleasure, and their own private loyalty to each other, they are reclaiming their humanity from the state.
It's an incredibly powerful concept.
Yeah.
But looking at the terrifyingly precise blueprint for all of this, the manipulation of language, the weaponization of history, the suppression of intimacy, it really makes you wonder, where did this come from?
Right. How did he come up with this?
How did an author imagine a system of control so airtight and psychologically sound?
To answer that, we have to look at the biography of the author himself. George Orwell, whose real name was Eric Arthur Blair, didn't just imagine these mechanisms.
No.
No, his entire life was a masterclass in experiencing the machinery of oppression firsthand.
You really lived it. Born in 1903 in British India, he joined the Indian Imperial Police because he couldn't afford university. He was part of the enforcement arm of an empire.
And seeing the reality of that power made him hate imperialism to his core.
He resigned, determined to be a writer, and essentially forced himself to live in abject poverty in Paris and London, taking menial jobs like washing dishes in a fashionable hotel, dealing with bugs and hunger.
That visceral lived experience of poverty is absolutely crucial here. You can't write the sensory reality of Airstrip 1, the block sink pipes, the gritty dust, the boiled cabbage, without having lived in the underbelly of a metropolis.
But the real turning point was 1936, when he went to Spain to fight for the Republican side against the fascists in the Spanish Civil War.
A hugely defining moment.
He experienced this brief, beautiful, egalitarian spirit in the trenches of Barcelona. But then the political tide turned drastically. He and his wife barely escaped communist purges in Barcelona in 1937.
Literally running for their lives.
Yeah. His own allies turned on him, hunting him down simply because the faction he fought with didn't strictly adhere to the Stalinist line.
That sense of sudden, violent betrayal by one's own side cemented his lifelong anti-Stalinism and his belief in democratic socialism. It taught him how quickly ideological purity could turn into a meat grinder.
And later, during World War II, he took a job at the BBC Eastern Service, writing broadcasts to India. He knew he was writing state-sponsored propaganda.
He hated it.
He described the feeling of doing that job as being like an orange that's been trodden on by a very dirty boot.
Wow.
It sounds like he lived through a crash course in every flavor of 20th century oppression. How exactly did those real-world experiences map onto the nightmare of Airstrip 1?
This raises an important question about the nature of dystopian fiction. It isn't prophecy, it's synthesis. Orwell took the building blocks of his own reality and extrapolated them.
So his job at the BBC.
His soul-crushing job churning out propaganda at the BBC, that is the direct blueprint for the Ministry of Truth, where Winston alters history.
And his time in Spain.
Surviving those political purges in Spain, where the ideological truth shifted overnight, and former heroes were suddenly executed as traitors. That fueled the terrifying mechanics of the thought police, the vaporization of unpersons, and the entire concept of doublethink.
It's all connected.
He watched in real time as political factions rewrote the truth of what happened yesterday to justify the murders they were committing today. He didn't invent the darkness of Oceania out of thin air. He just took the absolute worst elements of the 20th century, stripped away the camouflage, and held up a mirror to the world.
It's a mirror that shows us exactly what happens when objective truth is sacrificed for political power, which really brings us to the core value of this deep dive for you, the listener.
Absolutely.
Through Winston's struggle, we've explored how objective truth, the simple, unassailable freedom to say that 2 + 2 = 4 is the ultimate defense against tyranny. If you can hold on to that baseline reality, all else follows.
And we've seen how language isn't just a way to express reality. It actively shapes it. If you let an external force dictate your vocabulary, you are letting them dictate the boundaries of your consciousness.
And memory. Memory is our only defense against having our reality rewritten to suit the present moment. The party knew that raw, unfiltered human connection, the kind Winston and Julia found in the Golden Country, is the strongest bulwark against control.
Because it creates a private space, a private loyalty that the state cannot penetrate.
Right.
I think it's vital to apply the mechanics of this text to our lives right now. Obviously, we don't live in the Oceania of 1984. We don't have physical telescreens screaming at us to touch our toes in the morning.
Thankfully.
But we do live in a world governed by algorithmic feeds that invisibly curate our reality, deepfakes that blur the line between truth and fiction, and information silos that encourage a very modern flavor of doublethink. Protecting your own golden country. Your ability to think critically, to step away from the digital noise, and to connect genuinely and privately with other human beings is not just a nice idea or a luxury, it is a vital daily practice to maintain your cognitive independence.
It really is. The party's primary slogan in the book is, "Who controls the past, controls the future. Who controls the present, controls the past." Think about how that applies today.
We externalize so much.
We voluntarily externalize our memories now. We put our photos, our daily thoughts, our spontaneous reactions, and our entire personal histories into digital clouds and algorithmic feeds owned by massive, opaque corporations.
We just hand it over.
We allow devices to track our habits and quantify our lives. So I want to leave you with one final thing to mull over as you go about your day. If you don't physically own the records of your own life, who truly controls your past today?